Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, January 9th, 2024, the Amite River Basin Drainage and Water Conservation District here at the state capitol of Louisiana. Start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Bankston, can you lead us in our pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tony, can you give us a roll call?
All right, Mr. Bailey? It's not going.
This just,
All right, Mr. Bailey is absent. Representative Carter? Absent. Mr. Clark?
here.
Present. Mr. Quintmall?
Present.
Mr. Dawson? All right, Mr. Dawson?
Present.
Present. Mr. Delat?
Present.
Present. Mr. McCary?
Present.
Present. Ms. Felito?
Present.
Present. Ms. Fitch?
Present.
Present. Mr. Harris?
Present.
Present. Mr. O'Neill?
Present. Happy New Year, everybody.
Present. Mr. Parker?
Present.
Present. Mr. Rayford? Absent. All right, thank y'all. We have a quorum.
Okay, do we welcome public? Do we have any public comments? Hearing no public comments, proceeding on our agenda. Next item is approval of the minutes. Everybody, commissioners, have you had a chance to look at the minutes? Are they reflective of our last meeting? Does anybody have any points of contention? Anybody agree?
Yeah,
Changes, deletions?
you can mention that we corrected that one error.
We did, I did, looking at the minutes, we had one little spelling thing. Round 2 was spelled R-O-N-G with minor change. So, can I get a motion to adopt those minutes? Motion by Commissioner Dawson, seconded by Commissioner O'Neill. Any opposition? Motion passes. Thank you. Our next item is approval of our financial statements ending December 31st, 2023. Everybody had a chance to look at our financial statements? Any public comment about our financial statements? Tony, anything you want to expand upon?
Everything was good, everything balanced, and it's fine. We're in good shape.
Okay, Commissioner O'Neill.
Just $800,000 for regional capacity building from OCB. Is there some sort of timeline on when we'll receive that, or when we can expect it?
It's like a reimbursable type.
I can.
It's reimbursed. It's like a reimbursable. So we have to put out a payment request, and then we'll get that money back.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt our financial statements for December? Motion by Commissioner Parker. Second by Commissioner O'Neill. Any opposition? Motion passes. Okay, report by ARBC President. First thing, I want to announce to the commissioners that I'd like to form a project committee. On the project committee, I would like to have Commissioner Quintmall, Commissioner Delat, Commissioner Rayford, Commissioner Harris as chair, and myself. And the sense of this project committee as we move forward with our ARBC projects, whether round 2 or different projects that we have going on, large transformative projects, regional projects within the Amite River Basin. We want to be able to be on the same page and have a majority agreement on what suits the Amite River Basin the best to present that to the board. Most of the members on this committee are made up of parish leaders, not anything different, but at the end of the day, it's the parishes working together and reaching across the political boundaries and recognizing upstream, downstream, and having to account to your local constituents. The next thing is we've had some movement on our RFQ. You'll hear more about that. And we received a cooperative endeavor agreement from the OCD in regards to the $100 million, and you'll hear more about that. And like Gary, I wish everybody a Happy New Year. And any public comments? So our next thing is on the agenda is a report from the ARBC Executive Director.
Can we put those slides up? Which slides?
There it is.
I'm not green anymore.
Keeps going on.
Hello?
It's green.
Hello?
Use your outside voice.
Hello? I can talk really loud if we need to. All right, I guess I'll just talk really loud. So, Action Plan Amendment 3 was approved since we've last met. All projects in round 2 were conditionally awarded. The $100 million was allocated as part of Action Plan Amendment 3, and as President Clark mentioned, we did get a CEA late on Friday afternoon. We have added that to the agenda for the commission to approve the signature and entering into that CEA with OCD. There was some slight changes to our $100 million allocation, that if a project that is gonna be funded using those dollars has a total cost of $100 million or more and we're gonna receive $50 million or more in CDBG funds, another action plan amendment will be required in order to fund that project. I'll say that again. If the project that receives any portion of the $100 million, if it has a total cost of $100 million or more and receives more than $50 million, or at least $50 million or more in CDBG funds, an action plan amendment will be required, meaning it will have to go to a public hearing. So we'll be up to action plan amendment number 4, if that makes sense. That's the definition of a covered project via OCD and HMGP funds. All right, our annual plan. So we delivered the final plan to the House and the Senate committees. I followed up with both of those committees and asked if we needed to do anything further. They were just kind of waiting on, everybody to get situated, and they'll get back in touch with me if we're gonna need to present at any meeting or whatnot, and I'll keep y'all up to date on any of that, so we're good. We've set the public hearing meetings. We have our first one today in East Feliciana from 5 to 7, the East Feliciana Alumni Center. I believe I sent all of you a meeting invite. You are not required to attend. I just wanted to keep you all up to date and abreast of where those meetings were going to occur and when. Our central meeting is going to be at the main Goodwood Library on January 29th, and our south meeting is going to be at the Ascension Parish Government Complex on January 22nd. I'm going to give a brief presentation, probably an abridged version of what Stoka gave to the commission last meeting when he presented the annual plan. We'll take questions and give answers as we're able, and we'll have comment cards for the public to provide public comment on, right? And then we'll combine all those public comments and wrap those up and you know, resubmit that copy with all those public comments back to the House and the Senate committees. So, master plan update. We've issued an addendum so far, one addendum so far. That addendum answered a question, and we actually moved the opening date back 2 weeks. So our revised opening date is January 30th. That kind of pushes back our award to our March meeting. I do anticipate a second addendum soon. We've had 6 or 7 more questions that the committee and I have kind of rolled around. Nothing big or major, just some few clarifications. Again, the deadline for the completion is still December 31st of this year, and the deadline to submit to the legislature is February 28th. The biggest thing I have really to kind of talk about today is the Amy Ravine Tributaries Project draft report from the Army Corps of Engineers. I have read probably about 75–80% of it, and I've kind of given a brief synopsis. You have this first slide in your packet, but I think I added 3 or 4 more slides yesterday evening that I didn't get to print out for you. So public comment period runs through January 29th. They are having 2 public hearings, the 16th and the 17th of this month at the Ascension Parish Library, the Galvez branch, and then the central branch of the EBR library. I know we all sat through the Corps' presentation, 2 meetings ago, so I'm not gonna give us that download again. Y'all, I'm pretty sure, are familiar with briefly what it is. They are going with this non-structural plan, aka elevating roughly 3,200 structures, or flood-proofing those structures as well for non-residential structures. The way that they determined some of these structures and where they were going to target was they looked at environmental justice or socially vulnerable areas, and the watersheds that they had determined where they intersected with those areas, they were modeled and targeted, and damages and structures were modeled in those areas based on the water surface elevation from the highest of 2 events. Those 2 events were going to be extreme rain, meaning the design storm 10, 25, 50, 100 year, that's what they mean by extreme rain, and a normal high water downstream. Or negligible rain with storm surge downstream. So since this is a 50-year design life of this storm, they've taken the rain probabilities for the next 50 years and also the downstream, meaning what's the level of Lake Maurepas in 50 years going to be at a storm surge and a normal high water downstream. So each watershed that they modeled was optimized based on the highest net benefits when compared to cost. Now, that's a very vague statement, and I'm trying to really drill down, and I'll send you these so you don't have to take a picture in an email later today, I promise. I'm not keeping them secret.
I don't feel like writing songs.
And for the public, all of these will be I've been putting our board packet on the website after the meetings have concluded, and my presentation is also included in that board packet for the public's benefit. So each reach is optimized based on the highest net benefits when compared to cost. It's kind of a very vague statement, but and I tried to really drill down and dig into some of the report as to how they determined that, but it's still not quite apparent in my eyes. So when you look at the tentatively selected plan, which is what TSP stands for, they did 59 reaches where they were optimized for the 10-year floodplain, meaning they identified structures that would be inundated with the 10-year storm, and 13 reaches or watersheds where they were going to elevate structures that were inundated with the 25-year storm, and then 7 of those were gonna be, then there were 7 that they identified where the 50-year floodplain was gonna be utilized. They took they got all these structures out of the National Structure Inventory, and then combined that with LiDAR and their own custom sampling technique for estimating what finished floor elevation is. Now, some interesting things to me were that the average error for finished floor elevation was 0.81 feet, and for pier on beam, and 0.44 feet for slab. A combined standard deviation, like overall, if you combine pier and slab, was 0.71 feet, which can be a lot when you're talking about depth damage curve. So they used standard depth damage curves. I'm assuming they used something similar to what FEMA would use when they're estimating damages for substantial damage, and then they used RS means for depreciated replacement costs. So they did account for the Comey diversion in the model. Here's some information on the high water, what we call high water stage in the 2 different scenarios. So remember I said there was the design storm with normal high water, which is defined as, currently in 2026 is defined as 2.52 feet. But in 2076, they're accounting for almost 2 feet of sea level rise, so it's 4.42 feet in 2076. That would be the boundary condition in their model. And then their storm surge boundaries are going to be on the left side. You see the 2026, the right side of the the slash mark. You see the 2076. So they're accounting for a good bit of sea level rise, and storm surge is going to be considerably higher. But again, when they did the storm surge, there was negligible rain. I think they called it like the 99th percentile rain. So like it has a 99% chance of occurring every year. So here's a map, and I know we've seen this map before, but I kind of want to drill down into, like, you can see how many are yellow, right? Meaning that is the structures were only, modeled to the 10-year storm. Whereas the ones in this like teal color right here were modeled to that's the 25-year storm. And then the darker blue is going to be the 50-year storm, the 2% average exceedance. So you can see the majority of the area was modeled only to the 10-year storm, which nowadays when we build a structure, we're going to model or we're going to set the finished floor elevation of a structure based on the 100-year storm. So we're leaving a big gap there, in my opinion. And then on my next slide, I've got structures that would be damaged by event. So you can see in the basic numbers that they've been talking about, the number of structures they're going to protect is going to be roughly like 3,200. But when you look up here at this number, we've already got more than those structures that are going to be inundated in this year, in the initial design year, than they're going to protect by the 10-year storm. We've got, if we come down here to the 100-year storm, there were over 20,000 structures that would be inundated by the 100-year storm. Now, if you look down here, I've pasted so that we can look at the percentages here. That's the number of residential, commercial, industrial, and public structures. So 200,000 structures in the drainage basin that they modeled. And then in the future year, you can see based on sea level rise and the increase in the design rainstorm, the number of structures that would be inundated by each of these design storms. I know that's a lot of info that I just word dumped on you all. But these are some of the high points I feel like, and information that I feel like I got that were the best, that I need, that y'all were be interested in. So that was, I believe all I have on my slideshow. So questions?
You can,
And I would love your comments on this, and I'm gonna start aggregating that, because I believe the only person that has given me comments is, President Blatt on this, so that we can make a cohesive comment from the base. I think that's discussed, maybe last meeting or meeting before, so.
Comments, Commissioner O'Neill?
Ruth, if you're out there, let us know. Ruth Phillips, Texas, and State Engineering Sounds. So, one somewhat technical question first. Do you know how they calculate the sea level rise? What method they use? Was they were using NOAA data then? NOAA comes up with
I know they use NOAA 14 for the rainfall probability, but they used similar standard scientific methods for their information.
And so my second question is, have we talked to the court all about, when we can access this data? This seems like it'd be fantastic modeling data to use for our purposes.
I think that the Dewberry model was utilized significantly in this modeling. There's in the H&H section, which is pretty robust, that has a lot more engineering and technical data in it. There's a lot of information on what they used, and you can get even more into the weeds. I was trying to keep a little high level here.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we have access to that data so that when we're doing things, when we're
It
doing
seemed
our
like the
master
Corps was
plan.
utilizing their model that they had already used when they did Kill-Me Diversion, and they did what we're calling the 5 tributaries projects and EBR, and then they've supplemented and augmented that data with the National Structure Inventory, which some of that was very interesting, because I was very interested to see how they picked out each of these structures, because it's very interesting to read how they estimated some finished floor. They used Google Street View and LiDAR, yes, to measure finished floor above ground surface elevation. So, kind of mind baffling, but they did say that they have gone out in previous instances of using the same technique in other areas and done some, I don't want to call it spot checks, but gone out and actually surveyed, and they've said that it's been relatively accurate, is according to that. Those are the words in their study.
But could we ask them, how willing they are to share that data with us for our purposes?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that public dollars paid for it, so I don't know why it wouldn't be public information.
And thank you for the breakdown. This information's fantastic. Great job.
We apologize that these mics, they keep, when you turn them on, they go off automatically, so I'm having to turn them back on, and then they go off, and they a little bit back and forth. But got a comment from Commissioner DeLotte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you probably can't hear me or see me, I'm so short. I want to talk about,
Storms do cause flooding.
but I'm worried more about the data of rainwater. It's been explained to me that every drop of water that hits the levee of Mississippi River from EB4 to Ascension to Livingston, it's got to go through Amiens River. So they took the easy way out, in my opinion. What's happening here is every other program is out there is offering something to raise homes. People can't afford to raise their homes, or they've done raised them, or they moved out. It's simple, in my opinion, to do a little bit of dredging to get some of these hot spots out of the Amiens River. I see no data where they even tried to do that. Storm surge does not cause me as much damages as large rainfall amounts. Storm surges floods my streets and floods a few homes, but it doesn't cause me the damages that large rainfall does. And to me, that's where we gotta be focused at, getting the water out. And if someone wants to raise their home, that's several ways to do that through FEMA and the different government agencies. I just think that they need to take a little more effort in what they're doing. I actually have a meeting scheduled February the 20th with the colonel to address some of this stuff, and I'm not sure he's gonna do anything but maybe listen. But I'm hoping to get some information from this basin that you can come, that I can take with me and prove to him that we need help in a different way than just being, again, I'm not trying to criticize anyone. Please understand, I'm not criticizing. But, I mean, it's been, since 1954, we hadn't had any dredging. This is a gravel, fed river. It's a no-brainer, it's common sense. We all got it in this place here. We just gotta get the help or commitment. I feel like they're going the wrong way, and I would like to see them go in a different direction. And any help y'all can give me when I meet with them on the 20th, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Delotte. Your comments are very much appreciated. Commissioner Quintmall, you got a comment?
Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I do want to agree with Commissioner Delotte. I said this when the Corps of Engineers first originally came before this commission. I think it was actually our first meeting. And I told them, I said, you know, more and more of our institutions, whether it's federal or state, are getting into the house raising business. And we're getting less attention on proactive projects. And I voiced my opinion then, and I'm going to do so again. But I guess my question derives that, has there been a study to determine whether their requirements and to the elevation heights they're lifting to are equal to or less or greater than the parishes that they're doing these projects in? So, for example, if they're doing it in Ascension and they're requiring it at whatever elevation, and our regulations are less, well, we continue to build new homes at a lesser elevation than they're elevating these houses to, that have been proven by models and scientific data. So has that study been done? And, or, you know, I would think that you're defeating the purpose if the two don't, or at least not equal or greater to whatever the parish ordinances are at that time, because all you're doing is creating another round of elevated houses down the road. So did they explore that any, Rachel?
There wasn't a lot of information on to what level they were elevating the structures. It appeared that they were saying that they were going to be brought up to the 100-year level at a minimum. There's no way that they could not bring them into, at a minimum, they would have to meet parish ordinances, because every single one of these will require for sure. I mean, it's the same way that any of the FMA or, you know, BRIC or any of those other, you know, FEMA home elevation programs, they would have to run exactly in that same fashion.
I think I can provide some context on this, Rachel, if
Okay.
you want to address Clint's concerns, and
But yeah, I mean,
Delatte's as well.
but there's not, it didn't say whether, you know, and I understand what you're saying too, because especially if you're going to elevate on fill, you know, you're diminishing the volume of the floodplain, you're pushing water in other places and stuff like that. One would hope that they would go with, you know, just pier and beam and not using, you know, structural fill to be displacement of water, right? Creating additional problems for the others that live next door to them, you know, but
So the federal government, through FEMA standards, minimum standards of the National Flood Insurance Program, has come up with something called the Federal Flood Risk Management Standard, or FFRMS. Any federal dollars you use to invest in some type of mitigation effort, whether it's residential, non-residential, whether it's critical infrastructure or assets, has to now adhere to FFRMS, and that's been in place for several presidential administrations. What FFRMS basically says is if you're in a 100-year floodplain, you've got to go 2 foot above whatever the BFE is for that floodplain. If you're in the 500-year, it could be greater. So these are going to be at a minimum 2 feet above, which would probably be in excess of anything. I think our statewide minimum standard for freeboard now in the building code is 1 foot. So FEMA requires an additional level of protection up to another 12 inches beyond that. So it'll be 2 foot minimum. The Corps has never been in this business before, so they were with Southwest Coastal. This is the first time they're going to be doing this stuff, so that has been a little bit of fun process, I think, for them to sort of sort through it. But to give you all some background on this study, I believe, was a 3x3 originally done to look at flood risk reduction in the basin. It was done after 2016. And initially, they were going to actually take a look, I believe, at Darlington as a reservoir. But what happened is, in November of 22, right before we all became commissioners, they asked for additional funds and an extension to change the scope of the study. And so because of economic justice concerns, they switched the scope to no longer study Darlington, but begin to study non-structural. And that was a consistent theme around the state. We had several of these 3x3s going. They switched to non-structural statewide. So Southwest Coastal is nothing but non-structural, basically. So is this one. I think there are several others that are all non-structural, which means they're just looking at elevations with these studies now. But I don't think any of them initially started out that way. So just a little bit of context.
So their exact words would be that the Darlington, which was the tentatively selected plan, was identified to have extensive technical and policy concerns, which found the dam was constrained by site conditions that made it infeasible and designed and potentially increased life safety risk. That's their exact wording of why they did not select or move forward with that tentatively selected.
So Commissioner Quintmall, did that answer your question? Okay, hold on.
No, it did not. I'm gonna say it again. The Say Ascension Parish is +1 in the requirement above base. And FEMA, and the Corps comes in and says, we're gonna raise your elevations to +2. And they raise all these structures. And then we issue permits for new homes at +1, because that is what our current regs are. And for some reason, they have come up with +2, reduced that, under that is your potential for flooding, is under +2. So, they're gonna give you this money, you're gonna raise these set of homes, but you're gonna continue to permit houses at +1. Meaning that those houses will flood in the future, therefore continuing this mundane process over and over and over again. The question is, through all the parishes within this Amite River Basin, has a study been done to say, hey, these parishes meet these requirements or not? Just for informational purposes. I don't want to force any parish to do anything they do not want to do. But when you're continuing to be into a program of a certain requirement, then it needs to at least be looked at on your requirements at whatever elevation heights you are required to be at, or you're just continuing a future problem down the road. That is my question.
I don't think that they specifically, they didn't, that was not part of what I've read in the study. So I do think that that's a great question to pose, maybe with some of our master plan policy questions to look into. So keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Any more questions, discussion on this? Randy?
Rachel, I agree with Clint, we have the same problem. Is the comment period already passed? Can we add that to the comment? What Clint
The
was-
comment
was
period
stating?
is December 26th.
Yes, I would like to add that, at least from Mr.
January
Parish.
29th.
January, yes.
January 29th.
Sorry. January 29th is the end of the comment period. So I was hoping to get feedback from you all so that I can start to develop a combined comment from the commission itself, and so that I can make that on behalf of the commission too.
So we don't have to submit anything formal, you would do that.
I can submit it formally for
Okay,
the
thank
commission. Just, I need additional feedback to start drafting a comment, so. But I will take today's comments, start drafting something, so. Any more comments?
Any more comments? Okay, I'd just like to say myself, I've been looking at this Amite River Tributaries Project for a long time. Back in Tropical Storm Allison in 2001, things were coming out when Shaw was dealing with it and CEI was dealing with it, and they had GEC and several different groups before that were dealing with this. There was a lot of hopes. There was a lot of models, a lot of studies, and it's really disheartening that this is what they come up with. When you think of the Corps of Engineers, you think of the Corps that built these channels, the Whiskey Bay Pilot Channel or the Diversion Channel or this, that, and the other. And we're talking about drainage. Yeah, flooding, sea level rise, climate change, all of that, storm surge, but we have a drainage problem too. And when the plumbing is half clogged in your house, you don't elevate the house or move, you unstop the plumbing. And as far as I'm concerned, the plumbing in the Amite River has not been maintained in half of a century. So here we go. This is what we come up with. Anyway, we're gonna flood proof, we're gonna elevate, we're gonna duplicate other federal efforts, and it's just the only solution is federal buyouts. And what about maintenance? So anyway, that's my comment. Anybody else? All right. Rachel, does that conclude your? Okay. Moving on. Our next item is report by the ARBC Legal Counsel. Mr. Bankson, can you help us with that?
Sure, I'm on. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. One issue that I want to get authority from the commission is, as part of the original legislative draft, the formalization of the actual district boundaries was prepared by CSRS and submitted to CPRA. I think now that there needs to be formal adoption by the legislature of those boundaries. So I would ask that the commission authorize us to seek a legislative author for the formalization of the actual boundaries for this upcoming legislative session. That we'll send out all the draft of those actual boundaries that were provided by CSRS to CPRA. But I think right now, our present boundaries are not reflective of the true boundaries of the Amite River Basin. Answer any questions anybody has about that particular issue.
Okay, question to hands. We had some old boundaries. It wasn't all inclusive, and we have some new boundaries that are being proposed that are more inclusive, in particular Iberville Parish.
Iberville and also portions of Ascension
And
that were
Ascension
that are on the west side of Airline Highway.
So, any questions on that? Commissioner Parker?
I think we discussed here a few months back about doing so. So now it's time for us to go ahead and move forward and say, hey, let's get legislation passed to formally set those boundaries in place.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Harrison, a second by Commissioner DeLotte. Any opposition? Public comments. Motion passes.
The next item that I asked the commission to consider and think about is House Bill 686, which is the total revision of the commission. Whether or not there are any items, that was a very large piece of legislation. And as a result of that, in all pieces of legislation that are detailed, there's always some issues that the commission may find. Rachel may have some issues with some of the language that maybe need to be tinkered with. If we're going to look at that, I would suggest that we get some feedback before the February meeting as to whether or not there are things that the commission believes needs to be revised in. One issue that I think the commission may want to consider is reaching out to Senator Lambert, who proposed legislation not in 86, but in the previous legislation concerning the rotation of meetings in certain locales. The language in the bill that was previously adopted by Senator Lambert 3 years ago now may need a little tinkering, and I would hope that particular the Ascension and Livingston presidents look at that as to see whether or not they want to have any changes in that particular language. And I think it may need to be fleshed out a little bit, but for that particular reason, maybe before the February meeting, we could have some comments back by staff or the commission as to any potential changes they would like to see in that particular bill. But for now, that was the only item that I thought might be some potential discussion on. So that's just a report for you to think about going forward in reference to the next legislative session.
Commissioner Quintlaw.
I don't know if this is on or not. Is either one of these items in the packet, the ones we just discussed? Did I miss it? The boundary line as well as HB 686?
It's on the agenda, but there's no document regarding it.
Just need to try to make sure they're in the packet in the future.
So, Clint, I think the one about the meeting locations, I think it said something that Lambert, you was talking about Lambert, it said something about the meeting shall occur, using the word shall occur, not less than monthly or quarterly within Livingston, Ascension, and EBR, something like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's some specific language.
Legislation formalize the district boundaries or something here as well. So just like those, make sure those items are in the packet in the future. Thank you.
Commissioner Delacha, did you have a?
I'm good, thank you.
Any comments on that? Do we need an action on?
No action on that. Just if you have some thoughts between now and the next meeting, please reach out to me, and I will try to get something formalized as what the amendment would potentially look at, and the board can support or leave it the same, but that's a possibility for the next meeting.
Mr. Bankston, can you pull those two items, 686 and what you were talking about, and email that to the commissioners where we can have it fresh and right, convenient, where we'll know exactly.
I'll send that out.
Thank you. Okay, moving along. Thank you, Mr. Bankston. Our next item on the Amite River Basin Drainage Commission Water Conservation District agenda is under old business, number 10, and this is our master plan RFQ committee. Get an update on that, or?
President Quintmall asked for that item to be added to the agenda.
All right, President Quintmall, did you want to?
I don't know if this works. Yeah, look, this was something I chaired. Actually, Gary has taken the lead on this. He is more of a RFQ specialist than I am. I'm more of a project related. So Gary, if you want to just kind of go over some of the possible recommendations, maybe just a little update. I know you've been working with Ruth pretty heavily on this item.
Yeah. Clint wanted to relinquish the chair. I think you could be vice chair, but I'm happy to take over the chairmanship of it. We've gotten some basic questions which Rachel spoke on earlier, which we've addressed, and I think there's some other stuff that's coming out as well. I think there are other questions. Have you received anything else yet? I thought you mentioned another agenda that's coming out.
Yeah, just the ones that,
For
the
second
6 or
set.
7 that we've circulated, that's all that I've gotten so far.
I think there may be some more. I'm not sure. I think there may be some more coming out, but I don't think they've been.
Well, I have
submitted
yet to
So
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
So But yeah, I mean, that's where we are right now. I think our deadline, again, we extended that deadline an additional 2 weeks because of the holidays and some other stuff. So we're appreciative of that. I'm sure the consulting community was appreciative of that extension as well. But yeah, that's where we are, and we're just, right now, I think the deadline for questions is this, when's the deadline for questions for the agenda? I apologize for not having it. I don't think it's passed yet, so we could still potentially get questions in, but we're kind of playing, we're twiddling our thumbs for now until we hit the deadline and we can read those bids, so those facts. And we're not literally twiddling our thumbs.
January 16th is the deadline to receive written inquiries.
You know, that's, I think that's Human Relations Day. Does that mean we need to? No, it is. It actually is. So.
It's not a state holiday. So.
Well, I was just gonna say, do we need to allow it the 17th or something? I'm just asking.
No.
Okay, all right. Just asking. Make sure we weren't.
Okay, so I think the action that we're going to take on this today is Clint is delegating Commissioner O'Neill to be the chair of this committee. Any opposition? Any public comment? Okay, so moved. Next item. It's a pretty big item. From the OCD, Office of Community Development, Cost Endeavor Agreement for, Rachel, can you explain the rest of that part, please? Speak up, Rachel, because I push the buttons to recognize, and it comes on, and then it goes off, and I don't even know when it's on its own. So Tony is recording, and she will overlay. So,
So late Friday evening, we received the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement draft from Office of Community Development for the $100 million allocation for Region 9, specifically for the most impacted and distressed area. So here we're asking for the commission to authorize myself to sign the
ratify your signature.
Ratify my signature on the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement with Office of Community Development to receive the $100 million. I am ready to, I can, I'll just make sure you all have a copy, so you read the standard details. But the gist of it is that we will have to basically prepare an application with the project and the funding. There's a list of requirements that we would have to put into that application to send to OCD to tell them about how much each costs, the H&H or hydraulics and, the engineering and the basics of the projects for them to review and approve, basically, that it meets the requirements of the funding. And then we would basically be able to submit for, to get that funding back after we've expended dollars. So it would be work just the same as the $800,000.
Okay, do I have a motion any public comment on this? Okay, I got a motion by Commissioner O'Neill, seconded by Commissioner Ferlito. Any opposition on this? Okay. Motion passes. Earlier in the meeting, I did create a project committee. It's Commissioner Quintmall, Commissioner Delott, Commissioner Frayford, Commissioner Jack Harris as chair, and myself.
You have the authority as president to do that.
Okay, so Commissioner Weber or Dufresne for St. James. All right. So any questions about that? Commissioner Dawson? You good? Okay. All right. So Yep, Commissioner Quintmall, just talk loud, please. I'll push the button, but talk loud.
I just want to thank this commission for the creation of the project committee. I think it's important as we dive into these different rounds of funding, as well as the direction that we've talked about in the past, as well as where we're headed in the future. Obviously, you can see OCD has put in requirements and regulations that we need to then maneuver so that we qualify for. And so, I think it's great that this project committee can start talking about those items and how we're going to do that, what other funding opportunities we're going to go after, as well as some of the requirements like H&H modeling and how we're going to pay for those things and qualifying and creating these applications for these projects. So I'm super excited. I just want to let the commission know that, hey, this is recommendation only. This goes to the full commission. So if you, anything that this committee does that you have concerns or questions, please bring them up when we meet as the full commission. But it's going to give us some extra time to really dive into the details of these projects and be a little more flexible in our time and not have 3-hour meetings. So I'm super excited about it. Hopefully we can do most of this by Zoom, so we don't have to go ahead and travel to any specific location. That would be great. That's just a request, and super excited. So thank you.
Just a reminder, this CEA for the $100 million is for large transformative projects in the Amite River Basin. Commissioner Delott?
Mr. Chairman, those projects will be regional, but they can go from parish to parish, right?
Absolutely. That's, I think, the original intent. What they're looking for is beyond political boundaries and, a large area with one project. Not necessarily buyouts or flood proofing.
I'm on your team.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda is under new business. It's we were approached by the City of Central and their contractor right now to provide a letter of support for certain projects, and we've had a little discussion back and forth. We just want to make sure that, as much as we support any project, we're all about supporting local projects to help flooding and help drainage, but we're not a rubber stamp. It's been drilled in our heads by the Watershed Initiative that we should be considerate of upstream, downstream, and adjacent property owners' impacts. And so that, I think that is the best way to go about this. So with limited information, we've invited the representatives from the City of Central who will be submitting the project to come forward and maybe shed a little light on what exactly we would be supporting. Could you introduce your name and who you represent, even though we know?
Good morning. Stokes Brown, CSRS. I'll just talk loud.
Yes, please.
Also have my colleague Spencer Johnson of CSRS. We are contracted with the city to put together these applications, and I'm looking for the Amite River Basin Commission support for these.
All right, so there are a series of 3 projects.
Are y'all doing a presentation?
We do not have a presentation.
Okay.
But I'm just gonna talk through them. Do I need to push a button on this?
It doesn't, it hasn't been working. Just talk really loud.
Sure. So there's 3 projects, 3 drainage projects that CSRS in conjunction with the City of Central have been developing that will be applying for both BRIC and FMA grants with FEMA. I'll list the 3 of them, and then I'll go through in a little bit more detail each one.
Spencer, just FYI, these are in our packets, by the way, if y'all want to follow along. There's some information in our packets. Sorry.
Fantastic. I believe you have essentially the H&H modeling.
I put it in the packet.
Fantastic. So the first one is the Drawn Creek Regional Detention Basin. It's a regional detention basin that's in the Drawn Creek watershed in the city of Central. The second one is a Shoe Creek Channel Improvements Project. It's a regrading and widening of the Shoe Creek Channel in the Shoe Creek watershed in the city of Central. And then the third one is the Beaver Bayou Stormwater Improvements, which is the combination of culvert improvements at 6 locations in the Beaver Bayou watershed, along with a large regional detention basin in that same Beaver Bayou watershed. Drawn Creek is, let's see, it's approximately 28 acres surface area for a total storage volume of 2 million acres. Our modeling data anticipates that it will reduce water levels within the 100-year event by up to 7 inches across nearly 1,300 acres, reducing or benefiting 147 structures in the watershed. Of those, 136 are single-family homes, and a number of those are anticipated to receive more than $10,000 in damages in a 100-year event. We have developed cost estimates and, of course, damage modeling benefits, and at this point we anticipate model benefits to be approaching $20 million with costs just over $6.5 million, using the FEMA 6.0 PCA toolkit and the 3% depreciation rate for the FMA rate. It's a BCR of 3. So that's a project that provides substantial benefits in excess of its cost. And as a stormwater detention, there's a limited opportunity for any sort of adverse effects downstream or upstream. That's the Drawn Creek. The Beaver Bayou Stormwater Improvements Project, like I said, that's a large regional detention that's substantially larger. It's actually 10 times the size of the Drawn Regional Detention Basin. It's excess of, I believe, 20 million cubic feet of water storage. In addition, there's 6 culverts that were identified for improvements. To go back for a little bit of history, following the 2016 flood, the City of Central commissioned a master drainage plan. Part of that plan identified culverts across the entire city that were in need, that were insufficient for whatever reason it was, overtopping, limited flow. 6 of those are in this watershed, so we have incorporated the improvements to those 6 culverts. 3 of them are along Hooper Road, 2 of them are along Duval Road, and 1 is along Wax Road. They involve fairly substantial increases in conveyance in at least some instances. And so that, coupled with this large regional detention basin, to kind of offset negative impacts from increasing the capacity that was developed. This project, based on our modeling data, is anticipated to reduce water levels in the 100-year event by up to 13 inches across 900 acres. And this one is anticipated to benefit over 1,100 structures, 858 are single-family homes, and 270 are anticipated that would have damages in excess of $10,000 in a 100-year event. Again, based on the FEMA toolkit. There's a longer report here on the numbers. We are anticipating benefits in excess of $65 million, costs just under $30 million. So this one, using the 3% depreciation rate that FEMA applies to the BRIC and FMA grades, a BCR of 2.23. So again, benefits more than double what the cost of this project is. And then finally, we have Shoe Creek Channel Improvements. So this is Shoe Creek is a main channel in the Shoe Creek watershed, in the center, the southern central portion of the city. And we have identified that this channel has a capacity that's insufficient for the flows coming through it. So we have proposed a project that widens the channel bottom in 3 sections. There's a 15-foot channel bottom, a 20-foot, and a 30-foot as you get closer to the downstream end to improve conveyance. Again, this is a project that is anticipated based on our modeling data to reduce water levels by up to 5 inches across 500 acres, benefiting 119 structures. Of those, 106 are residential, and 99, based on our modeling data, are anticipated to have, or that they would have flood damages in excess of $10,000 in the 100-year event. I think maybe the key element of this project, let me take one more item here. So based on the same methodology, the FEMA toolkit, we're anticipating project costs of $11.5 million with project benefits of $20 million. So again, approach it's 1.74 BCR. So we're approaching twice the benefits for the cost. So that's kind of the gist, I guess, of these 3 projects. Is there any other questions or any additional information that you would like to?
Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Quintmo?
Yeah, kudos to City of Central for being proactive. But as a commission, I would like to try to maybe create a process for which we review these instead of just doing it on the whim, as if, hey, we're going to present this meeting and then approve it the next, or we have it go to the project committee meeting and it's presented there, and then that recommendation falls to the full, because it's hard to discern. And I can tell you, there's rarely a case, and really rarely, that I will never support a detention project, period, which you have 2 on here, which seem to be sizable in scale, removing and holding that water in the basin so that it doesn't impact downstream. But every project has impacts outside of the scope of the project, every one. And so when you do channelization or things like that, they do have impact somewhere else. That's just the nature of projects in themselves. So it's never no impact. And I know people say that, but it's never true. So, but again, kudos to y'all and being proactive and helping your residents with these projects. And thank you for here to present. Thank you.
Commissioner DeLotte?
I was going to echo what Commissioner
Clint said. First thing, yeah, if you can hold your water, that's a great thing, because then it's not impacting my parish. Okay, that's a great thing. But when you do make those improvements, it's making the water probably come down towards us quicker. So when you do your cost-benefit ratio, I think you should include downstream also. Not against the project, I like Clint's idea, but when you're improving everything above me instead of below me, then I know that it affects me, and that's what my concern is. I appreciate it.
So, Commissioner Dawson?
Just real quick, I want to support what Commissioner Quinmont was saying about having that go into a project committee and maybe having some additional look at it as to determine the effectiveness of it. Because one thing that we talked about, and even in some correspondence I've seen coming from the commission, there was a lot of questions as to about what is the downstream effect of projects, and we're required to make sure that, in a sense, we do no harm, right? So kind of looking at it at a commission meeting is a little difficult, but if there is a recommendation that comes from a project committee that's doing that, and then shoot that out to the overall commission, I think that'd be very helpful in determining action that we should take. So I support that wholeheartedly.
Commissioner O'Neill?
But no, I want to echo. I think that's an excellent idea. I think it's an excellent suggestion for us to have this process policy procedure about which we start this stuff. I do want to point out that in this case, I think the deadline for submittal for Brick and FMA are actually probably first and we have already come with those. I think the national deadline is February 29th. So I think it's a little bit of a truncated timeline maybe go through this process. We are going to take an action. I don't want to push the commission one way or the other. I think it would be extremely difficult for them to thread the needle from a timeline perspective. So great job of the explanation.
I did want to bring up one more note on some of the downstream effects. So we had been conversation with Rayford, specifically regarding the Shoot Channel project. His concern was that it would lose water quickly in Coney River, causing problems for communities along downstream. So we use just to try to understand what the effects might be, mitigate some of the concerns. We use EBR stormwater regional model to evaluate that. And we incorporated. So we ran their model, it's set up, and then we used our watershed, higher resolution, local model, to make some comparisons. And I think some of the things, the key items here are that in the Kobe River, at this confluence with Shoe Creek during a 100-year event, slightly more than a 100-year event, the regional setup is different. 16 inches, 72 hours. We're looking at flow rates in the Comey in excess of 20,000 cubic feet per second. Even with the channel improvements to Shoe Creek, we're looking at an increase of about 350 CFS leaving Shoe Creek and entering the Comey River. So fairly small by comparison in terms of total flow rate. And then the time.
So you're saying 20,000 CFS is small?
No, I'm saying that's
Okay.
is what is in the
Okay.
river at the confluence of Shoe Creek. Shoe Creek, it's in current existing conditions is discharging about 3,250 CFS into the Comey River, and with these channel improvements, that increases to 3,600 CFS. So it's an increase of about 350 CFS as compared to existing conditions, compared to 20,000 in excess of 20,000 in the existing.
So do you have an idea right now? It's talking about, and that was kind of our concern, I think with the deadline that y'all are trying to meet, and this coming in, the request coming in, it was kind of a short notice, and we received this by email. And, we want to be diligent and, due process and due diligence, and supportive all the time. But with that said, we don't want to just put ourselves out there and then something come back on us, But anyway, I think we got that ironed out. So my question is okay, was primarily Shoe Creek. This involves channel improvements that's widening. Are you using any type of gray infrastructure? What is your plans? You just going to widen it, or are you going to use? Hold on. Are you going to use any natural channel design, or any two-stage channel design, or nature-based? How are you just going to come in and with concrete riprap and so forth?
I'll jump in here. So the Shoe Creek channel improvements are going to be natural channel improvements. There's no concrete lining. There's no gray infrastructure involved in the improvements of that channel. It is strictly an improvement of the inverts of that channel, the slope, as well as the width of the channel to carry the 25-year storm capacity. To discuss a little bit more on the increases in Shoe Creek of that 350 in a regional event, while there's an increase of 350 CFS coming out of Shoe Creek, there is no increase of water flowing downstream. There's no increase in the peak flow rate of the Comey River flowing downstream. Imagine if you're filling a bucket with a small hose and you've got a large hose, and you increase the filling of the small hose, but by the time the big hose hits peak, that small hose increase did not affect the rate of flow from the large hose, which creates the flooding conditions in the Comey River watershed. So if you can follow that analogy, essentially these improvements are coming, the increased flow is coming before the peak flow of the Comey River, which is not increasing the flood risk in the Comey River.
That's a classic move.
Where's the bucket?
I've heard that before somewhere.
The sum of the two flows together is not more than it was pre-channel improvement.
Right, just the rate.
The peak flow rate coming out of Shoe Creek in the proposed conditions occurs about again, according to our model data, about 30 hours prior to the peak flow rate occurring in the Comey River at that same location. The Shoe Creek watershed is obviously substantially smaller, and so the water is able to collect and discharge in a much shorter time frame than the Comey.
Well, that would depend on where the rain fell.
Yeah.
Assuming homogeneous rainfall.
I've heard the same thing about Bayou Manchac and Bayou Fountain and all that, Wars Creek. Yeah. But anyway, Commissioner Quimby?
Yes. So when you look at these three projects holistically together is kind of where we see the offset. And so I really want to commend you on the detention projects, including with Shoe Creek, okay? Because you do have some offset there. Hey, they're being proactive in retaining. And so there, you should be able to do some channel improvements as well. And I just want to make, as the commission, I support giving you the recommendation letter because of that. Because you're not just coming here with a channel improvement. You're coming here with two large detention projects that are holding back water, but you also have another solution for another problem in getting the water out and some channel improvements. So I'm in support of the recommendation for giving you a recommendation letter. So kudos to that, and I always look at the more holistic approach, and congrats to coming to the table with both options that somewhat offset each other, and that's kind of what we need to look at as a commission. So I'll make that motion as a recommendation.
Okay. I share the same sentiment, and I talked to Commissioner Rayford, and he wanted me to convey his sentiment, and he was good. He seemed very well. Just one last question. The retention pond areas, I mean, how does that work? Does the city just come forward and say, look at a map and pick a point and say, the land is, does the city of Central own it? Do they have to buy it from somebody? How does that work? Has anybody approached the property owner if they don't own it?
Yeah. So the parcel that was identified based on the hydraulic modeling to see what area near the channel was, number one, undeveloped near the channel, so that it has connectivity to receive the water from the channel. And so those two, multiple parcels were identified for the location of potential detention. Modeling was performed to identify which one of those were most effective. Once that was completed, we reached out to the landowners to understand if they were willing to sell. After passing that, really only came down to one that was willing to sell. And so this is essentially the one that is, well, for Beaver Bayou, that's the one that is the application. And so the city would, purchase the land.
So a landowner could come and say, I don't want to sell my property.
Certainly anybody can change their mind.
This project is approved for regulations of change, and it could actually utilize domain if they wanted to write it. That used to not be a program feature. Used to be voluntary participation for the homeowner who was going through an acquisition of kind of property or whatnot. But now actually, not for non-structural, they can't elevate somebody or buy somebody out against it. But for risk reduction projects, actually, you can try to set up a fee, but then if they got to back out or act a little squirrely, you could just future the domain policy.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to, oh, I'm sorry, wait, public comment. Anybody from the public want to comment on these three projects? Okay, do I have a motion to support, providing a letter of support for the City of Central and this company? I got a motion by Commissioner Parker. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner O'Neill. Randy, you okay?
Question if I can.
Yeah, please.
My lack of knowledge on the project, guys, is keeping me in support. But in the spirit of cooperation, if the rest of the members do this, support you, I'm on board. It's not clear. I know about the detention ponds, that's a win-win, I understand that. But it's not clear to me how you can put water downstream and not affect anything. And that's what's bothering my lack of knowledge. In addition to the cost of the project, seems a lot of money there. And I just think it could be better used downstream somewhere. But like I said, this first time here, I don't understand the project wholeheartedly. I trust these members, and if they support it, I will too.
Thank you. So we got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parker and a second by Commissioner O'Neill. Any opposition? Hearing none, it's adopted. Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all coming in. Okay. We also received a request for letters of support from the City of Baton Rouge Parish for projects. Do we have someone here who can shed some light on these projects? Please come forward and tell us who you're with and your name.
Good morning. My name is Mosey Kennedy. I'm in KJTV, and I am representing the city of Baton Rouge. We have projects that we're submitting forward for brick and FMA. And the reason we say brick and FMA is because FEMA has said if you're going to apply for brick or apply for FMA as well. So we're doing both. These are two projects that we actually last year. They were denied because of a technicality. Parish's hazard mitigation plan was not up to date, so therefore was thrown out due to that reason. So we are going ahead and resubmitting this year. Parish's hazard mitigation plan will not be thrown out on that technicality. Unfortunately, we were not able to receive any feedback from FEMA to say, the applications were good or not. I do know those thought they were good applications when they submitted them the first time. So basically, these projects come from the stormwater master plan that was developed for the parish. We did extensive modeling for the parish, separated the parish into 11 distinct watersheds. We have models for those watersheds. We also did something in those watersheds, other more detailed modeling on localized residential or smaller areas. So we've got a lot of modeling. When we did the stormwater master plan, one of the things the Fred said was we want to make sure we're not causing harm elsewhere. So all projects that we are putting forward ensure that there are no upstream or downstream impacts that have not been mitigated. So I just want to put that out there front because I know that's our concern.
That's our main concern.
So any project that we have impacts more by mitigation. Again, these projects came out of the storm. Oh, wow. Maybe I don't need to talk quite so loud now. Again, these projects came from the Stormwater Master Plan. We developed a 20-year capital improvement plan, total of 60, I don't remember how many, 60-something projects. All the projects that we have recommended that have decent BCAs and meet other federal requirements, we've been trying to submit for various grants. These two projects are relatively high cost, and that's why we're going with the FEMA FMA and BRIC funding requests. I'll talk about each one now individually. The one is called JCK Lively Bayou Detention. This is a project within the Jones Creek watershed. It's a detention project, 27.5 acres inline detention. The intent of the project is to reduce flooding for up to 677 residential and non-residential structures. The overall cost of this one is about $25 million, and the benefit cost ratio, utilizing the updated FEMA percentage, 7%, or 3%, I'm sorry, is 2.58. So it's got a really healthy benefit cost ratio.
It also meets the other criteria of being in low to moderate income and the Justice 40 criteria established. So, and again, it's detention, so we are not causing any downstream impacts. The intent is to capture water, hold it for a while before it was released to reduce the flooding downstream. So that's essentially Lively Bayou detention. The other one is called HEDO1, Diversion Culvert and Detention. That is in the Hurricane Creek watershed along Roberts Canal. Basically what happens in Roberts Canal, portions of that canal was diverted previously, and so when we get into high flooding events, the water follows naturally the low ground where it actually used to go. So what we're proposing there is putting in a diversion culvert underground along that original flow line path and then putting it into a detention downstream to hold that water for a while before discharging, again, to make sure that we don't cause any downstream impacts. Because if we took that water from and put it in this canal or into the pipe and put it downstream, it would, it would cause downstream impacts because we'd be moving it faster downstream. So that's the point of the detention pond. This one, the Hurricane Creek one along Roberts Canal, a portion of that property is on Breck Park property. We do know, we haven't talked specifically, or Breck may have already provided a letter of recommendation on this one. I'd have to go back and look. But Breck has been very cooperative and very positive in any projects on their property that help to reduce flooding. The other project we have not pursued talking to property owners. Fred does not usually like us to talk to a property owner until he knows that the project is going to be moving forward. And as Gary said, he can utilize eminent domain if necessary. So any questions?
Make a recommendation with approval support letter.
Any questions? Any public comment? Okay, we got a motion to support it by Commissioner Quintmon and seconded by Commissioner Dawson. Any opposition? Any public comments? Motion adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Okay, next, moving along our agenda, the next item is any general, non-agenda item, public comments. Would anyone like to give us some public comments? Yes, ma'am. Please come forth and state your name.
Yes, my name is Cindy O'Neill, and I would like to make a suggestion to you guys, if it's possible, maybe when a deadline is nearing for any letter of approval that a community is asking you to sign off on, maybe you should set a 60 or 90-day deadline before their deadline, so you'll have time to review it and give your proper approval.
I agree 100%. This was kind of thrown on us and in an expedited manner, and I think the deadline is coming up shortly, and just kind of a reach there to ask the ARBC to support, provide a letter of support. And like I reiterated before, as much as we want to support local government, local projects that help reduce flooding, reduce flood risk, we're not a rubber stamp. Any comments? Commissioner Fitch, you have any comments? Okay.
With the deadlines, we should provide a list of the information that we want to see.
Okay.
So we'll need to come up with that list.
Sounds good. Okay, sounds good. Okay, hearing no public comments. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Can I get a motion to adjourn? First by Commissioner Parker, second by Commissioner O'Neill. Motion passes.
Balance it by How you doing? Thanks. Good. You? What's that? Yeah. Quiet. Nice. How about y'all?
A little less quiet.
Yeah?
Yeah. So.
You moving to Baton Rouge or what?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Good to see you.